Traffic. It's the curse of every big city. With increased population comes a corresponding increase of people on the road. The Seattle area is no different. Our roads have become so clogged that it's become a major political issue here. What would you say if I told you there was a way to make 1 in 20 vehicles on our road just disappear? The solution might shock you. Throughout most of the world, motorcycles are allowed to move around and through slow-moving traffic. It's called lane splitting, lane sharing, filtering, and it is vastly misunderstood and feared by American motorists. That's understandable because lane splitting is illegal in every state but California. Motorists misunderstand it because they are unfamiliar with it. When most Americans think of lane splitting, these are some of the images that they conjure up. What they don't realize is that when done responsibly, it's actually safer for motorcyclists and beneficial for all motorists. Before I continue, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not your typical young hooligan motorcyclist. I'm a 50-year-old professional who manages a large team of software developers, a husband, and a father who happens to ride a motorcycle to work every day because it's fun and economical. I'm doing my bit to reduce fossil fuel consumption, which of course saves me money. I get to work sooner because I can ride in the HOV lanes. And when I get there, I save money on parking. I've never ridden in a motorcycle gang or club. I've never been ticketed for reckless riding. I've never been involved in a serious motorcycle accident. I always wear protective gear. I ride safely and conservatively. I've lived and worked most of my life in the Seattle area I consider home, but I grew up in California, so I have firsthand real-world experience with lane splitting. I've also spent some time living in countries where traffic laws were virtually unenforced, so I have firsthand experience with the kind of traffic anarchy that many American motorists fear when they think of lane splitting. Let's discuss some of those fears and why I think that lane splitting is a good idea. This is what slow-moving traffic looks like in Washington today. Motorcycles and cars are treated almost the same. Although motorcycles take up significantly less space than cars, they are not allowed to share a lane with a car or ride between lanes of traffic. This means that they are taking up nearly as much space on our roads as the cars. This is what happens in slow traffic where lane splitting is legal. This is lane splitting. It's also called line riding. Note that motorcycles are effectively removed from traffic. They are no longer contributing to the congestion at all because they effectively have their own lanes. Think about that. Even when you're in a car, you could be getting to your destination sooner. But instead, you have to wait in line behind a vehicle that could very easily be getting out of your way and has every incentive to do so. Here we've come to an intersection. Lane splitting at an intersection is called filtering. This is what that same intersection looks like where filtering is legal. Some motorists freak out because they feel that the motorcyclists are unfairly cutting in line. But watch what happens when the light changes. Because motorcycles have a much higher power-to-weight ratio, and because motorcycles are actually safer to operate when they are moving at speed, the motorcycles quickly jump ahead of the slower accelerating automobile traffic. And, once again, they are virtually removed from the traffic equation. Note that these motorcyclists aren't speeding, and they aren't operating unsafely. They've merely accelerated up to speed more quickly than any automobile, even most supercars, ever could. Here I am on my morning commute. The gap between these cars is big enough that I could easily filter up to the front of the line, but the law prevents me from doing so. So instead, I wait at the back, where I am feeling quite vulnerable and exposed to one of a motorcyclist's worst nightmares, a rear-end collision. Incidentally, that's why I'm waiting near the lane marker. I want room to react to any car that might be coming up behind me, giving both of us an avenue of escape should the motorist have misjudged the distance. Statistics have shown that a rear-end collision is one of the most frequent types of motorcycle accident. If this motorcyclist had been allowed to filter, he would have been protected by the cars around him, and he would not have been struck. Luckily, although his motorcycle was destroyed, he walked away from this one. Others have not been so lucky. Imagine riding a motorcycle in stop-and-go traffic on the freeway. How many fender benders do you pass on your morning commute? Now, think about how much worse those would be if a motorcycle were the vehicle that was struck. There's another serious problem with motorcycles in stop-and-go traffic. Many motorcycles are air-cooled, and virtually all motorcycles depend to some degree on moving air to keep them cool. Most motorcycles don't have a fan. It is expected that the motion of the vehicle will be sufficient to keep air flowing past the radiator. In stop-and-go traffic, particularly on a hot day, this is not a guarantee. Ever see a motorcyclist parked on the side of the highway on a hot day? There's a good chance that he's there because he needs to wait for his engine to cool. An overheated engine can seize, and if that happens on a busy freeway, nobody's going anywhere in a hurry. Motorcyclists also don't have the luxury of air conditioning. Sitting in traffic on a hot day can cause a motorcyclist to become uncomfortably or even dangerously hot. That creates a great temptation for some motorcyclists to shed protective gear as the weather heats up, further putting them at risk of serious injury. In 2014, UC Berkeley conducted a study in conjunction with the California Highway Patrol, which concluded that motorcyclists who split lanes at speeds that were no more than 10 miles an hour faster than the flow of traffic were in no more danger than motorcycling in any other circumstance. In fact, motorcyclists who lane split are actually safer due to their increased visibility and increased mobility. Keep in mind that a moving motorcycle is more stable and maneuverable than a stationary one. Obviously, racing through traffic at elevated speeds is reckless and dangerous. No one with any modicum of common sense would advocate for this kind of behavior. Indeed, even in California, such behavior is considered reckless driving and can result in serious fines and license suspension. But when lane splitting is done at reasonable speeds, for example, under 30 miles an hour and no more than 10 miles per hour faster than the flow of traffic, it is demonstrably safer for the motorcyclist and beneficial to all because it reduces congestion. Last year, a bill was placed before the Washington State Legislature that would have allowed limited lane splitting in this state. Since then, the bill has been significantly watered down to the point that it now would only allow motorcycles to pass slow-moving traffic on the left, going no faster than 25 miles an hour, using the emergency strip on multi-lane numbered highways. This is a far cry from proper lane splitting, and I don't think it's nearly good enough, but I suppose it's a step in the right direction. One common argument against this bill is that some fear that it will encourage reckless riding on our highways. In response, I would point out that this bill only allows passing at very slow speeds in very limited conditions and in a part of the road that is normally off limits to automobiles. Let's be honest, those who would recklessly ride on our highways are going to do so whether or not this bill passes, and they would be subject to heavy fines and disciplinary action either way. Just this week, this bill passed in the state Senate, and it is being put before the House. With a little luck, soon Washington riders may be able to enjoy just a little bit more safety on their morning commute. If you are at all interested in this issue, I encourage you to email your state representative and urge them to pass this bill. Perhaps you might suggest that they watch this film. Hopefully, it will do some good. Obviously, motorcycling is an activity that involves a certain amount of risk, as are most things worth doing in life. These are risks that riders accept and deal with every day. It's why motorcyclists are required to take significantly more training before we are allowed to ride on public streets. As a responsible rider, I embrace things that help me manage and reduce that risk. Lane splitting isn't really about riders like myself getting where we want to go faster. Well, okay, I admit that holds some appeal as well, but it's really more about keeping riders safe and reducing congestion on our streets. Right now, 1 in 20 vehicles registered in Washington state is a motorcycle. Most of them spend most of their time in the garage. But if lane splitting were legal, it's not unreasonable to assume that more of those bikes would be on the road during our morning commute. And that means reduced dependence on fossil fuels and shorter commute times for all of us. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.